My name is Tom Smith. I am pastor of First Baptist Church of Silverton, and I've been here since 2008. I had learned about the church assessment and knew some other churches that went through it. My thing was I always wanted to do the assessment when we were on a high. It's like, get us at our best. And so the other problem that I kind of had as a pastor was thinking that it was going to provide people with a forum to actually say things that they were disgruntled about the church or complaints about the pastor, just kind of like a place for them to air things. So whenever it came up, I always kind of pushed it in the background, either because of my own insecurities as a pastor, inadequacies, or sometimes because of just feeling like our church wasn't really hitting the mark. Well, what happened was somebody else in our church got wind of the church assessment. It was no longer just me. This person was on our elder team at the time, and he just thought it was a great idea. We made some initial contacts with John Long, then Church Venture. James Gleason got involved, and they actually thought it was a good thing for us to do. And so it was more like I kind of acquiesced. I went along with it and said, sure. Partly because the volume of information they needed at the beginning of it was huge. I mean, they needed like 10 years of committee minutes and giving, attendance. So they compiled the statistics, and that took probably 6 to 9 months for us to get it all together. And then COVID hit. That really changed the timeline, slowed everything down. It was harder to get people together. And it was actually, we started this process sometime in 2019, and by the fall of 2020, our report was done. The report, it wasn't necessarily like an autopsy, that'd be too strong, or a post-mortem or anything, but there was definitely some forensics, some uncovering of trends, strong points, weak points. In general, people saw that they had an accurate perception of our church, what they presented, and then they presented us with a series of possible steps that we could go through. All of those steps made sense to us, but none of them were really easy to implement. Having been through a church assessment, one thing we found was that the entire church felt a sense of ownership, that they've been through the assessment, and they, as a church, we need to work through those things. So we've continued to do that over the summer. Right now we're focusing on some of the challenges of reconciliation for some of the differences. So we're in a sermon series leading up to Advent on forgiveness, looking at it all the way through Scripture, Old Testament, New Testament, and trying to pursue that. So as we think back about the process of the church assessment, overall there's probably 3 things, at least, that come out. One was, despite my initial misgivings, it wasn't as personally threatening to me as it could have been, or as maybe I anticipated. A lot of things seem better after you're through them, and any insecurities or things that I felt about going through the church assessment was really that way. It was much better, even more positive and affirming in ways. The second thing that was kind of a takeaway for us was it really did help to have more eyes looking at our church, to have more people involved. And some of what they did was they just brought an objective perspective that in the midst of it, we have certain feelings about what goes on here, but they were able to bring some data in a way that was very helpful. And somebody has said it's important that you always have a firm grasp of the obvious. And the church assessment, the people on the team, they did that, and they laid it out in a kind way, a way that was very helpful. And the third and last thing is they have continued to be available to us. They've been responsive to know that having done this assessment, there's still concern for our church, that we reach a place of health, of strength, and that we really are able to impact our community in ways that God has designed us and placed us in this community of Silverton to do.